Exam to be released this morning from the NEC headquarters in South B, Nairobi. Over 1.4 million candidates sat for the very last KCPE, the final cohort of the 844 education system.
Parliament invites Kenyans to give views on a bill sponsored by Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah seeking to scrap the Utamaduni Day public holiday currently observed on October 10th every year.
And meanwhile, First Lady Rachel Ruto hosts a dinner in honor of visiting African First Ladies who are in Kenya for the launch of the We Are Equal campaign and the Joyful Women Organization's 14th anniversary.
A very good morning. Welcome. You're right on time for today's edition of Morning Cafe this lovely Thursday. My name is Freddie Ndimuli, and guess what? 32 days to Christmas.
Merry Christmas, guys.
Christmas tree coming up in a few days.
I'm just waiting for 30 days to Christmas, and then I can bring up my Christmas tree.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, a very significant day today, the KCPE exam results and KEPSE as well. To be released today, this morning, starting at around 8 a.m. And of course, we'll keep you updated on what is happening from these studios here at Morning Cafe. This is where you start your morning and of course, be part of this conversation at TV47 News on X, TV47 Kenya on Facebook. The hashtag is Morning Cafe. I'm Flora Limuki.
And I'm used to Stanley Nyarungita. This morning, we'll also be taking a look at it is the last KCPE results to be announced. So obviously taking a look at that particular journey, how it has been, and analyzing it. We'll also be joining our correspondents, boots on ground, just to see in different parts of the country, in different schools, who are the winners, or rather who have scored the topmost marks, and which schools are really shining out here. We'll be linking up with them later on, so you definitely want to stick around for that. But first, to a top story which concerns the same matters, the KCPE results announcement. Fred.
All right. Top story results for the 2023 Kenya Certificate for Primary Education KCPE exams are set to be released this morning. According to communication from the Education Ministry, Cabinet Secretary Ezekiel Machogu will preside over the release of the results, and this will be at the new Kenya National Examinations Council NEC headquarters in South B, Nairobi. Now, about 1.4 million candidates undertook their KCPE exams, and about 1.2 million did the KEPSE exam, that is for grade 6. This year's KCPE cohort was the last to undertake the KCPE exam to pave way for the full implementation of the competency-based curriculum, CBC, in primary schools, which will now see students undertaking the Kenya Primary School Education Assessment, KEPSE exam. Time now for the day's diary before we get down to the dailies.
Right, and on today's diary, that particular bit of the KCPE results also forms our top diary this particular morning. Ezekiel Machogo, Cabinet Secretary of Education, is expected at Mtihani House at around 8 a.m. to be releasing these particular results as early as this particular morning. And as alluded earlier, we'll be following up on that, boots on ground, just to know what will be said and who will be in this particular event. Well, other matters for today, just to take a look at, so apart from the whole KCPE announcements, today is the first day of the inaugural Research, Innovation and Digital Agri-Expo 2023, which will take place at the Mount Kenya University grounds. The two-day expo, which is set to attract at least 5,000 participants, is themed on adapting new technologies in agribusiness value chains to confront modern-day challenges, happening today and ending tomorrow. Today is also unveiling of Jamhuri Prison Hall. The PS State Department for Correctional Services, that is Salome Beako, will today lead a delegation to unveil the Jamhuri Prison Multi-Purpose Hall. The hall aims to rehabilitate inmates and provide smooth integration into society post-incarceration. Away from that, today in basically the whole National Assembly and the whole Parliament happenings this particular morning, the Public Investment Committee on Commercial Affairs and Energy is scheduled to meet with the PS National Treasury, or rather PS National Treasury, PS State Department for Industry, Managing Director, East Africa Portland Cement Company, and an SSF Managing Trustee and CEO of Holcim Area Manager regarding the material uncertainty related to the ongoing concern at the East African Portland Cement Company. And the committee is also expected to seek a status update on the whole recent Mavoko land tussle, just to offer that particular, this even as the residents there have an outcry on the same. Another update for today that you will be expected to see, Northern Kenya MPs and the Pastoralist Parliamentary Group will today hold a press briefing on the El-Nino drains and the ongoing impact it has had and concerning that particular northeastern region area. And speaking of which, we'll be having that particular conversation this particular morning. Fred, two deputy governors on set, just to give a glimpse of what the El Nino impact really has.
Yes, indeed. Our main discussion will be centered around the county's response to the El Nino weather phenomenon. And we'll be having in studio the Honorable Stephen Boro, Deputy Governor Murang'a, and Martin Moshisho, Deputy Governor Kajiado County. And we'll be looking at that and a lot more, especially from the counties. We'll go to the dailies now.
Oh, yes.
And yes.
Still on matters El Nino.
Puzzle of El Nino billions. That is a big story on the front page of the Standard this morning. It forms our top story, or rather the biggest discussion this morning. Puzzle of El Nino billions. Government set aside 10 billion shillings to mitigate the effects of heavy rains. However, county governments have been told to adjust their allocations to help victims. Governors are up in arms, but the deputy president is adamant. As the big boys trade blame, wananchi are suffering. So where's the money? That story is on page 2. We do have the president, the deputy president there, and the chairperson of the Council of Governors, Anwai Guru, there. And the deputy president says, we are therefore shocked to see governors complaining that they are yet to receive money for El Nino from the national government. Such money is not forthcoming. That's the deputy president. Earlier he had said that the county governments had already received 10 billion shillings. And the Council of Governors chairperson says, we note with concern public utterances that suggest that county governments have received funds from the national government to support the mitigation of the devastating impact of the El Nino rains. The other big story on the front page of the Standard this morning, report exposes shock losses in Uganda botched oil deal. Analysis shows Kenya will lose billions if they do not offer neighbors incentives to return. The report by Kenya Pipeline Corporation further shows how the deal was skewed in favor of Kenya. Story on page 4. Next to that is a highlight on police running into headwinds in Njenga case. Officers have failed to link Maina Njenga to any crimes, while weapons picked from his home were not linked to the people arrested. About 35 witnesses will testify. On the real estate, a pullout from inside the Standard report how low-income families can afford homes. Other highlights on the top strip of the Standard: why candidates are shunning UDA elections. In business, KCB assets cross 2 trillion shilling mark. On the international front, Israel-Hamas agree on ceasefire. And in sports, Giants fall to Minos in qualifiers. The story is on page 40. And that's the Standard this morning.
Oh, I was waiting for it to say on the back page of the Standard. Yes, it's a culture. Well, let's have a look at the Daily Nation this morning. And the top headline there, how Treasury gifted farm 5 billion shillings for air. And project is still pending, but contractor moved to court and won hefty award. And a 2009 tender to build an alternative data recovery center in Naivasha, which little known MySort Africa won, and which was initially estimated to cost around 800 million shillings, has now ballooned to 5 billion shillings in a botched deal that brings into focus the frivolous manner in which public projects are implemented. That is the story on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. Numbers there, 3.6 billion shillings is the amount the arbitrator and High Court awarded the firm for loss of profits. Yes, another big story on the Daily Nation. Azimio tax cut to wait as Ndungu tells talks team. And on page 6 is where you explain the talks team formed by President William Ruto and opposition leader Raila Odinga will make public report on Saturday, even as National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Njuguna Ndungu says the proposed tax cuts cannot be implemented immediately. Yes, and on the right strip of the Daily Nation, governors clash with Gachagua over El-Nino cash. And counties are still waiting for the funds promised to them, and comments that they had received them or did not receive the support were unwarranted, says Council of Governors Chairperson Anne Waiguru. And that story is on page 2 of the Daily Nation. On matters education, move junior school to secondary to save funds, Ruto urged, and the government stands to save more than 100 billion shillings by placing junior high in secondary schools, says Kupet Chairperson Mboko Milemba. And that is the story covered on the back page of the Daily Nation. Yes, and another story there on the Daily Nation back page, exam season ends with KCPE results expected today. And we plan to have new JKIA terminal in 3 years, says CS Kipchumba Murkomen. And 20 billion shillings is the amount claimed for breach of contract by 2 firms that have been contracted to build the Greenfield terminal. And that is what we have on the Daily Nation this morning.
Katika gazeti la Taifa leo, seneta mpaka waziri tope uhasama kati ya waziri wa barabara na uchukuzi Kipchumba Murkomen na seneta wa kaunti ya Nandi Samson Cherargei uliendelea kutokota jana, huku seneta huyo akimshutumu waziri kwa utendakazi duni. Habari kamili katika ukurasa wa pili. Cherargei adai Murkomen amekuwa akizuru China sana na kupendelea wajinzi wake. Katika upande wa kulia, Sonko karibu kuponea kwa kesi ya ufisadi. Amechapisha picha ya aliyekuwa gavana wa Nairobi pale akipiga simu. Mengi ni katika ukurasa wa 3. Wasema mwendesha mashtaka alijitenga na mashtaka na korti kulazimika kufunga kesi hiyo. Pale chini, mazungumzo ambayo tutakuwa nayo leo asubuhi. Mafuriko yaua watu 12, hofu ya El-Nino ikizidi katika kaunti ya Tharaka Nithi. Hapo chini, masuala ya kitaifa, SA tumai hiyo ni Afrika Kusini yapiga kura kuvunja ndoa na Israel, washinikiza kukatiza uhusiano na kidiplomasia hadi vita visitishwe. Mengi katika ukurasa wa 10. Pale juu, habari ya Shakahola ya rejea tena, na kuna mwanadada pale akisimulia aliyokuwa kitendeka. Nilicheza na mauti katika msitu mkuu wa Shakahola. Mwanamke aliyenusurika kifo katika msitu wa Shakahola, kaunti ya Kilifi, amesimulia kilichojiri katika msitu huo ambao wafuasi zaidi ya 400 wa mhubiri Paul Mackenzie waliaga. Katika ukurasa wa 3. Hivyo habari kuu, seneta ampaka waziri tope.
Let's now focus on the Star. The Star this morning, the big headline there, Mount Kenya MPs claim Mungiki is back in full swing. Former leader Maina Njenga denies re-emergence of the dreaded outlawed sect, insisting it died many years back. That story is on page 2 of the Star. The other big headline on the front page of the Star this morning has to do with floods, and these are photos from different areas. No let-up, road now, a waterfall, mourners forced to trek. Some images of vehicles trying to wade through flooded and muddy roads, and there a very sad picture of mourners carrying a casket towards a burial site, and they have to wade through flooded roads.
That's in Laikipia.
Oh yeah, a very sad image there. The other highlights on the front page of the Star this morning: 89 million shilling house at center of ESCC Oparanya battle. Elsewhere, Nyeri snubs MP's summons over 17 billion shilling oil row. Or Njeri, apology dismissed. In Njeri snubs MP's summons over 17 billion shilling oil row. I was wondering what Nyeri has to do with it. And elsewhere, Wycliffe Muga on why Tanzania isn't keen on East Africa tourism visa. The other highlight is on the top strip of the Star, and a picture there of President William Ruto inspecting houses as CS Murkomen reveals a new airport plan. The story is covered on pages 4 and 5 of the Star this morning.
Well, and let's now cross over to the Business Daily. The top headline there: KCB guarantees in G2G fuel imports hit 515 billion shillings. And yes, lender issues 45 letters of credit valued at 3.37 billion shillings as bank says it has strong trade finance teams behind the deal. And another story there on the Business Daily, the lower strip: court rejects a plot to stop 357 million shillings graft case against KRA chair. Other stories there on the right strip of the Business Daily: Kenya spends record 72 billion shillings on China debt. And interest Kenya paid for outstanding Chinese loans more than doubled in 3 months through September, pushing repayments to a record high of 72.07 billion shillings. And Stanchart declares 2.2 billion shillings dividend. Away from that, authority tests shares trading via SMS. And another story there on the top strip of the Business Daily, an opinion by Bitangi Ndemo: the new agreement between EU and Africa and Pacific states marks a significant milestone. Yes, and that's the Business Daily.
That's the Business Daily. I was hoping to get the People Daily, since my screens are frozen. But let's cross the borders to Uganda now.
We can have a look at the Business Daily, though.
The People Daily.
We do have the business before we go to Uganda. We still have the Business Daily, but I have the People Daily here. Let me look at it. And the big story on the People Daily front page: governors differ with Rigathi over El-Nino billions.
Okay.
County chiefs come out guns blazing to reject claims by the Deputy President that they had received cash from the national government for emergency response. That story is on page 4. It will be forming a major part of our discussion later with our guests, and do stand by for that. You have an image there of the governors there, and with the COG chairperson Anwe Guru addressing the media yesterday on this issue. Other highlights on the front page of the People Daily: reprieve for city homeowners in Kirima saga. Victims given window to strike out court settlement with wealthy family. And elsewhere, top leaders welcome peace pact in Gaza. On the top strip of the People Daily today, Central MPs protest over return of criminal gang and demand crackdown. We have a picture there of women leaders from Mount Kenya region led by Thika Town MP Alice Ng'ang'a, Naivasha counterpart Jane Kihara, and Kiambu woman representative Anne Wamuratha addressing journalists at Parliament buildings in Nairobi yesterday on concerns about reemergence of outlawed groups. That's the front page of the People Daily today.
Right, now let's go to see what's big on Uganda. Katanga's death stars relatives' state power. That's the big story. And just a brief on that. Who was he? Asking who was Katanga. Known to many, including those who shared social nights with him, Henry Katanga lived a modest life, which was in stark contrast to the high and mighty connections he possessed and with his deep pockets. More is on page 4. Just below that, they have an interesting headline. Prizes take off as grasshoppers finally land. This pictured on that front page of the Daily Monitor. Some motorists there and traders who are loading bags of grasshoppers, commonly known as maname, at Katwe Market in Kampala. Traders are making a killing after after a long wait for the insects. Oh, okay. That is what is happening in Uganda this particular morning. And the very top strip there, Museveni rejects Justice Kisakie early retirement. But meanwhile, grasshoppers in
Big
Uganda.
Story in Kampala.
Oh, yes. It's a delicacy, I'm imagining.
Oh, yes, it definitely must be.
Let's have a look at the Citizen in Tanzania, and the top headline there, invest in these 8 areas for good results. And yes, TIC has highlighted the automotive industry and production of wheat, palm oil, fertilizer, industrial raw materials, mobile handsets, and flat-rolled steel products as particularly lucrative areas to invest in. And the numbers there, 650,000, there is a domestic edible oil demand in tons annually, while local production in less than half at about 300,000 tons. This is according to the official statistics there. And other stories on the Citizen on the lower strip, Serengeti named best park in Africa again, and Serengeti National Park has emerged the best African safari park in a survey conducted by the safaribooking.com. The 4th consecutive year it has landed the honor. Yes, another story, IC Rwanda DRC relations loom over EAC summit, and Tanzanian wins coveted research award. Yes, and that is what we have on the Citizen this morning.
Right, and
tusalie.
Okay.
Yes, tusalie kwenye masuala ya bongo. Kwenye jarida la Mwananchi, gazeti la Mwananchi hii asubuhi hii ya leo kule Tanzania, mapya sakata la Mwabukusi. Habari kuu pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Mwananchi kule Tanzania, alazimika kujitetea mwenyewe huku wakili wake aliyesimamishwa kazi akitaka rufaa. Chadema nayo yatia mguu. Habari nyingine kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Mwananchi, nusu wanaume wenye umri wa kuoa bado hawajaoa kule Tanzania. Shida kweli.
I think you should do synergy between Tanzania and Kenya, because I believe it's the opposite here.
Everyone is married in Kenya. Okay. Habari zingine kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Mwananchi, hatari wenye TB 27,000 watoweka bila matibabu. Maneno kule Tanzania. Na kwingineko, JK huyo Jakaya Kikwete ataka viongozi wasikilize ushauri. Na gari la OCD latajwa kubeba mwili wa aliyeuawa na watuhumiwa. Haya ndio maswala yaliyopewa kipaumbele kule Tanzania asubuhi ya leo kwenye jarida la Mwananchi. Turejee hapa nyumbani tuangalie karakacha.
Katika maswala ya karakacha, the pigs are back on the front page, rather not the front but on page 14 of the Standard, as we'll find the caricature this morning, and on page 19 of Daily Nation. Matters, if you really know how to swim, this is where it really comes into play. Director, inaenda kama tunazapata page 10 of People Daily on the screens later on. On page 19 of the Daily Nation, there are 2 gentlemen there floating on a boat. and one of them says, "What funds?" The other is holding a huge bag of what seems to be the El-Nino budget. And there's another gentleman there with that floater trying to swim to these two gentlemen coming probably for this particular El-Nino budget. And just below it, there's reminds me of the Noah's Ark.
Mm-hmm.
And
the interesting bit is that the Noah's Ark was meant to save people. This one is already underwater. Devolution was meant to be a solution,
oh, yes.
but
and,
it appear it's not.
And this ark has been written counties. It's probably the county's ark. That's page 19 of Daily Nation.
I'm seeing this caricature of someone who looks like the governor of Mombasa. It reminds me of the words that Fred started with yesterday's show. Mm-hmm. Akihimiza ahadi zake.
Ni muongo. I just remember that. Yes. Muongo. Hatimizi ahadi zake.
Na si mwaminifu. Likiwa choma, chomekeni. Do stand by for this conversation and a lot more on the state of the nation. As earlier said, we'll be having Stephen Mboro, Deputy Governor Muranga, and Martin Mushisho, Deputy Governor Kajiado County. As we take a look at the county's El Nino response, it is the biggest talking point. It is what is featuring on the front page of the Standard. On all the cartoons today, matters to do with El Nino response by both the county and national governments. Do stand by for that.
And meanwhile, of which, the People Daily, Slano's work, a contrast of national government and county government.
Same debate.
The national government saying, I gave the county government Kenya shillings hundreds of millions to deal with this El Nino crisis. Meanwhile, the county government saying, I have not received any money for the El Nino crisis. But it seems like it's the same person saying. So
it is the same government.
Yes, on one end and all that.
Do stand by for that conversation after the break. Remember, you can keep interacting with us on our social media pages, TV47 News on X and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya Plus. Remember our top story today. KCPE results 2023 are out this morning, and as from 8 a.m. we'll be moving to the new Kenya National Examination Council headquarters in South B, Nairobi, where we do expect the CS for Education, Ezekiel Machogu, to be releasing the results. You're watching Morning Cafe. Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe with me, Freddie Ndimuli, on TV 47. And now I want to get down to business and discuss the biggest headline of the day. It is what features on the front page of the Standard, puzzle of El-Nino billions. It is also on the front page of the Daily Nation, a much smaller headline, but governors clash with Gachagua over El-Nino cash. It has been featured on all the cartoons this morning, and on the Daily Nation, we have an image of the representatives of the national government. That's the president and the deputy president. That's on page 19 of the Daily Nation, on a boat with the counties being represented by an ark, similar to the Noah's Ark, but submerged underwater. And the county governors are being asked, what funds? This morning, we're privileged to have in studio Stephen Mburu, Deputy Governor Murang'a. It's good to have you in studio. Karibu sana TV 47.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Also with us in studio this morning, Martin Moshisho, Deputy Governor, Kajiado County. Gentlemen, your counties, the two counties of Kajiado and Murang'a, are among the 33 counties listed as having been affected by this El-Nino phenomenon. And this is because of history. Whenever there are above average rainfall, these two counties undergo some serious flooding. So even before we even get down to the disagreements, let's just take stock of the situation as it is. And we start with you, Bonamboro. How is the situation in Murang'a as we speak? This is about 2-3 weeks since the heavy rain started beating us.
Thank you, thank you. Let me begin by saying good morning to you and to the people of Murang'a and the people around who are listening to us. First of all, let me first say that the El-Nino situation, or rather the heavy rains that we experience right now across the country, it's unprecedented in this year, even for the past few years, about such heavy rains. And so first of all, we want to join the rest of the Kenyans and first of all pass a message of sincere gratitude to the governments that have made it to ensure that we do have the emergency funds that are available. In Murang'a County, the situation is good. I would say relatively good, because Murang'a is known for issues of flash flooding that causes mudslides. We haven't experienced that so far. It's also known some areas have are low-lying and they have a little bit of flooding. We haven't experienced that. But we have seen that the rains have indicated areas where some rivers may overflow. But it hasn't sincerely affected a lot of people. So the situation in Murang'a is manageable. And we have seen that some roads have been a little bit washed away. But those are small access roads. Still movement is ongoing. And the county government is making measures to ensure that that is repaired. But that can only happen once the rains have subsided.
You talked about issues like mudslides, which occur from time to time in Murang'a especially.
Yes.
And this happen even with the normal rains that we experience, seasonal rains every year.
Yes.
Now, with the meteorological department predicting that this phenomenon, which is above average rainfall, will last up at least into January of next year.
Yes.
Definitely, that is a cause for concern for Murang'a.
It definitely is. And that's why when you look at the preparedness plan for Murang'a County, one of the most effective way to avert such disasters is to plan for them. And unfortunately, disaster is not a one-sided activity. It's a joint functions between the national government and the county government. And it being a joint function, you underscore that the counties, and especially the structures of the counties, the structures of response are usually on emergency response that are on behalf of the county government. This includes the rescues. These are county government functions. Includes the first response, which is usually the medical response. But you also see that on when you require a little bit of an advanced response, you require the intervention of the national government, because it has the tools that are kept in place to ensure that we have that happen. And maybe I can take you back a little bit around 2 years ago. no, 3 years ago in 2019, 2020, when we had similar areas of flooding in Murang'a County. And the response had the county government coming in and providing the first response in rescue and aid towards the people affected. But you also find that the national government has a role to play in it. We were adequately supported by the national government through the 12 Engineers Battalion rescue team that is based in Thika, and so therefore you find that even the National Disaster and Operations Center, the framework that they have formed helps us to ensure that even the responses that require a little bit of more funding come from the national government.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Let's now move to Kajiado County, which also has a lot of issues. Hotspots like Loitoktok, Namanga, issues of flash floods, even in Keseria and Torosei, all these areas, Magadi. How is the situation as we speak now?
Good morning, Kenyans, and thank you for having us this morning. My name is Martin Moshisho, Deputy Governor Kajiado. We want to thank God that since this rain started, of course, Kajiado have areas that are so prone to flooding, the areas that you have mentioned. But so far, so good. We want to thank God that rains in Kajiado has just been average. And indeed, there are some areas in Kajiado that has not really experienced rain as such. When you talk of areas around Matapato, areas around Lodokilani, there are areas that has not really received rain. But let me say that many parts of Kajiado has received rain, but no destruction so far, which we really thank God. However, as a county, we did prepare for the El-Nino floods, and we continue to watch and be alert.
Okay.
Yes.
The question is now, when it comes to preparedness, you've just said that the Kajiado prepared for this disaster, and the weatherman was positive enough about what to expect this year. Yes. And they said that the rains will definitely be above average, and that this is tilting towards the severe, and that the last time we experienced this to the severity that we expected to happen is probably back in 1998. Other predictions of El-Nino have not been this severe. We are seeing other areas around the country experiencing severe flooding, areas of coast, northeastern, and we do expect, because it is a moving phenomenon, that it could actually get or worsen in areas including Kajiado and Murang'a.
Yes.
You mentioned correctly that emergency response is a function, is a devolved function.
It's a joint function.
Yes. Issues to do with health, that's a fully devolved function. There are issues that will occur as a result of this phenomenon, especially to do with health. Diseases that come with flooding and severe flooding as well. Death of livestock, death of human beings, and all these things. In as far as preparedness is concerned, to what extent probably has Murang'a County prepared in as far as even budgetary allocations, because your budget came much later in the year. The weatherman spoke about this way earlier this year.
I want to put it in a form of context, so that we can be able to understand how preparedness of such disasters can be adequately supported. And I want to take you back to the disaster cycle. The disaster cycle, when you look at it, has around 5 steps. You begin from preparedness. There is now the disaster. You have the response. Then you have mitigation, and then you have now it goes back to the same cycle. And when you look at it, then you have to prepare for disaster each and every time that you're making your plans. And what we are looking at in Murang'a is to having a response plan that is not only geared towards this current disaster. And so when we were making the last year's budget, we started the process of allocating funds. Within the regulation, or rather the regulatory framework, there is something that is called emergency funds that we are supposed to put into the budget. And so therefore, what we did as Murang'a County is to begin something that is called creating regulations and policies that guide that emergency fund. So that now we budgeted for that.
How much allocation probably would you say was taken towards emergency response?
It's 5% of the development budget.
Mm-hmm. Which roughly how much?
Roughly for Murang'a County, that is around 60 million.
60 million.
Yes, around 60 million. But the emergency funds are quite unique. They cannot be budgeted when there is an emergency, but they have to be put in place when you're doing the budget. And so therefore, what we did as Murang'a County, we created a policy, we created the regulations. That enabled us to create what we call a special purpose account. The special purpose account is that you draw the entirety of the money into that account, so that you do not have now to go through the requisition process that you go through the National Treasury. So that if you need the money tomorrow or the other day or the next day, you can be able to access that money. However, in Murang'a, we have a unique situation on how maybe you can respond to disasters. Mm-hmm. If, for example, we know that the rains have come and some few roads have been washed away, the response to go respond to those roads cannot be to create a road immediately. Because immediately that you do that, then the rains are going to continue, and then your response is also going to be washed away. So what we are planning is to ensure that subsequently we ensure that we redirect our responses accordingly, so that now we can be able to avert instead of responding to.
Okay.
Yes.
And on the part of Kajiado, what kind of allocation do you have in the budget for emergency response?
Thank you very much. In Kajiado, we have really prepared for emergencies, and what we have done is ask every department to be able to prepare for the same. Now, emergency department, which is under finance, we have allocated 100 million for purposes of responding to the El-Nino effects. But apart from the 100 million, every department has really prepared for the same. When you talk of the Department of Health, is very, very critical in ensuring that is able to respond to diseases that come along such a rainy season. For example, around Magadi, malaria cases tend to increase, and therefore the department has to prepare well. So we ensure that there is sufficient commodities in our hospitals. In the recent Mashujaa celebration, we flagged off medicines and hospital commodities to all our hospitals, just to ensure that every area, every sub-county is able to attend to cases that are related to medical. The Department of Roads, we ensure that all our plan and equipments are in shape. And we allocated a budget of 10 million to ensure that all the machinery are working, so that if there is diverting water, because areas like Bisil are always prone to such floods, and our machinery then will be able to attend to such issues. You find that towns also have their own problem. Mm-hmm. And most of the time you find, blockage of sewers and all that can really cause havoc. Mm-hmm. So what we did, we launched a unit we called Mazingira unit, just to ensure that Our towns are always attended to ensure that there is cleanliness in towns, there is unblocking of all those water paths. And I think so far that has really helped Kajiado, especially in our municipalities, towns of Kajiado North, Kajiado and Kajiado Town and Kitengela. That has really helped a lot. We also not just saw this as a disadvantage, but we also wanted to take advantage of these rains. And the Ministry of Agriculture was to ensure that the people has got, seeds to plant and to grow food. And the county government has flagged off, these seeds to the farmers in good time. The Ministry of Water has also done its bit.
This is the national government?
The county government.
Oh,
Even before we go to the national government, the county government has done its bit to ensure that their funds are allocated for that department to be able to address issues relating to water. So, in a nutshell, we have done our bit, but I think the next debate is to how do we collaborate and cooperate with the national government. I know we will come to that.
Yes, we will, because you've said how much your counties have allocated towards disaster response emergency funds. And the question is, in your own assessment, do you think with the kind of picture we have what is to happen ahead for the next 2 months, we expect above average rainfall. We've seen for 2-3 weeks the kind of disaster and the kind of destruction we've seen. Do you think that this kind of allocation is sufficient to fully cater for the effects, mitigate effects, help families, and also rebuild what will be destroyed by the rains?
I think for the parts of the counties, and this is what we are indicating as part of the conversation that we need to have a continued conversation with the national government. Rebuilding is a continuous affair that will require all the resources of the county government and as well as those of the national government. However, having said that, the kind of rains that we are receiving right now and the kind of response that is supposed to be there is supposed to be an indicative of a structure that even the most basic activities of a county should reflect such activities. And I'm going to give you an example. For example, in Murang'a County, we have the devolved sector of health. We have over 157 health facilities across Murang'a County. Having anticipated that we would require more medicine moving forward due to the heavy rains and the disease that comes with that, we made a conscious decision to do a supplementary budget that added close to 50 million in drugs so that they can be able to sufficiently add towards the response. What I want to mean is that the structures of the government, whether it's in any department or in any ministry, activities should be able to provide resilience moving forward. Because currently what we are suffering from is having development that is not a disaster conscious or emergency conscious. And I want to look at a situation, for example, what we are having in Mombasa. You find that the floods that are in Mombasa, highly residential areas, you see mansions that are submerged, houses that are submerged. This is not to mean that it is a deliberate effort to not to respond to that. But you may find that development, when we are creating roads towards certain areas for residential areas, there should be sufficient drainage to ensure that we do that. Where there is drainage, we have ensured that we constantly and regularly ensure that we have open drainages that can be able to sufficiently drain the water. Where we have sewer systems, are the sewer system working so that they do not get back to the water sources that we do have? When it comes to issues of agriculture, are we practicing safe agriculture that does not silt and keep silting our riverbeds? Because the more silt that we do have in our riverbeds, then the same case happens that the flooding are going to be a consequence of that. And what we are seeing in most of the cases is that the activities that we do as Kenyans, or how we develop as Kenyans, has left us at a disadvantage. And so therefore, we require a conscious response to how we undertake development. And you're going to see this across counties, whether we are talking about our cities in Nairobi, Mombasa, Eldoret, Kisumu, Nakuru, or even the small towns like Keno Town in Murang'a and Murang'a Town. How do we respond to this when we are structuring and planning our cities, when you are planning our towns, when you are planning our residential areas? We require to have this picture well clean. And I want to take you back to kind of response that we are expecting, that we are having in Murang'a County. In the beginning of this financial year, we made a conscious decisions to begin a youth policy, that we develop Murang'a Youth Service in the process. This is giving us up to 3,000 youths every financial year who we have taken up towards Murang'a County. Right now, those youths have unclogging drainages. They're helping us in terms of responding to our towns due to the environmental matters that comes with the El-Nino rains. And this has helped us towards ensuring that our towns are well sufficiently drained. Yeah.
Hold that thought, and we'll come back to discuss more about the responses, the unique responses by each county towards this El Nino phenomenon. We're due for a break right now. You're watching Morning Cafe. We have deputy governors from Kajiado and Murang'a counties discussing counties' response to the El Nino phenomenon. You can interact with us, even ask questions on our social media pages as we continue with this conversation. You're watching Morning Cafe. We play it now. Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Fred Indimuli. We continue this discussion about counties' El Nino response. And before we proceed with the discussion, let's hear what the Council of Governors Chairperson Anne Waiguru had to say about this disagreement on the funding from the national government on disaster response.
We have 37 counties that have reported that they have been affected, counties where towns are marooned, especially in the northeast. They cannot be reachable right now, even by air. To date, we wish to state and clarify that county governments have not received any allocation from the national government to go towards mitigation measures for El Nino. As a matter of fact, counties are owed a total of 62.58 billion from the equitable share. This is not the time to point fingers. This is not the time to make accusations. This is not the time for populist politics. This is the time to put our hands together and ensure that we reduce as much as possible the suffering of Kenyans.
Anne Waiguru, chairperson of the Council of Governors there, reacting to statements by the Deputy President that county governors had already received or had access to a 10 billion shilling fund towards emergency response, and in particular the El-Nino. I'm still in studio with Stephen Boro, Deputy Governor Murang'a, and Martin Moshisho, Deputy Governor Kajiado Counties. And gentlemen, it would appear that there was an expectation of money from the national government. And now we're getting the national government accusing the county governments of sitting back and folding their arms and waiting for help. When this is emergency response is a devolved function. And let's start from there, Bwana Moshisho. Are you waiting for any kind of assistance in dealing with what is ailing Kajiado in as far as this El-Nino phenomenon is concerned?
First of all, I would concur with the sentiments of the Chair Council of Governors, Madam Anne Waiguru, that we should take a collaborative approach in responding to the effects of El-Nino. It is not just a matter that should be handled by county governments alone. It is not a matter that should be handled by the national government alone. We should take a collaborative approach. And I think it is not time to point fingers. Let's sit down, let's agree, and let's be truthful to ourselves.
But this issue of agreeing, because we saw earlier, this is not the first time we're getting to hear about discussions between the national and county governments about mitigation effects or preparing for disaster response, especially on this issue of El-Nino. And it would appear that a few months back, these levels of government were in agreement on how to approach. What went wrong?
That's why, Fred, I'm saying there has been promises here. We were promised that 10 billion shillings is going to be allocated for the El-Nino response. We had also seen some allocation of about 4.4 billion to the kitty of NDMA. But up to this moment, we have not seen a coin. Even on the normal disbursements that comes to the county, there are some counties that still did not receive disbursement of September, others of October and November. So, you know, we have not received the 10 billion that has been promised, and we have not received the normal equitable share disbursements.
Okay.
So we want to ask, especially the office of His Excellency the Deputy President, now that he coordinated mitigation of the drought, and I think that was a fairly coordinated endeavor. Why don't we replicate or even better the responses of El-Nino in our country?
But Mboro, is it an issue of communication? Because it would appear there was agreement at some point, but now everyone is speaking at cross purposes. If at all there was an agreement, what went wrong? What happened?
Let me first of all start by saying that the counties are not sitting back. Because the initial response strategy between the county and the national government was we allocate funds, and the national government is also as well going to allocate funds. These funds are going to be joined together for the purpose of a unified response towards disasters such as El-Nino that are happening right now. However, The communication strategy seems to have a little bit, I don't want to say that the national government has failed to deliver on what it promised, but rather we seem to be having a situation where the right hand is not speaking to the left hand. Remember, we are 48 governments, one nation, but the national government structure can as well as develop its own response strategy. The issue of involving county government is to ensure that the county government at the grassroots level to ensure that everything runs smoothly. What we do need is a very clear indicative communication strategy. The framework for response should be able to understand, one, how much funds have been allocated, how are they going to be dispersed, and to respond to what, through who, and through which structures. That is the strategy moving forward that should be as clear and be a matter of public record. Because you also understand that response to disasters is not only a national government function, it's also a county government function. But you see other institutions and organizations such as the Kenya Red Cross doing very much in terms of responding to these disasters. Coordinating all these effects of those of stakeholders as well as those of the national and the county government should be a prime key indicator on ensuring that in future we do not have continued suffering. And so my position on this is simple, that when it comes to disasters and response of such activities, we should try to entrench them in policies and regulations hardwired in a framework of development.
Is that what is lacking?
I think that we have policies in the national government, but we also have policies in the county government. And I'm going to give you a response, a clear indication. And I know that my colleague deputy governor is going to agree with me. You have a national government response structure that is indicative of the chairs of national disaster response teams. You go at the county level, the county commissioner is the chair of that team. He coordinates the national government departments in that. You go to the sub-county level, the DCC is in charge of that team. You go to the division level, the ACC is in charge of that team. When you come to the county, the governor deals with that response within the perspective of the county government. But having a policy that combines both, so that you can have the response of the national government and the county government well coordinated. I think those structures are missing within the coordination factor, because you need to have a structure that is what are the responsibilities of the governor moving forward when it comes to this kind of response. Because you also realize that any governor or any county government or any elected official, it would be extremely difficult for you to sit back and see your constituent suffering, and then you have your hands tied. Because, for example, one of the key issues is that we cannot pivot development money or even the monies from the recurrent budget or even the development budget towards this response.
Yet that was a demand by the Deputy President, especially on the Mombasa governor. And he said, and if I may quote, he said, you cannot have money in the bank while people are suffering. Get that money out of the bank and do this. Was he wrong in making that demand? You see,
sometimes it's not a matter of a cut-throat response, but you also understand that we have a PFMA Act, the Finance Management Act that we deal with, and the control of budget and the treasury are going to be very clear that you cannot take money from the national treasury to the county on unbudgeted allocations. And this is why when you have money sitting in the bank, then it means that there is one thing that maybe has happened. Either you do not have a policy to draw from the emergency funds, which now you need to requisite as a normal budgeting function, and you have to budget for it. That means some counties, what they must do if they do not have that response is to go back and to their county assemblies and hurriedly pass a supplementary budget and regulations for the emergency bill. If they have not done that, then it's a matter of just drawing the money from the national government. But here is the problem that we do have, that you find that even these emergency funds that we are saying we draw from the national government, they are still part of the equitable share. They are still part of the, it's not a separate funding that is that is somewhere.
Okay.
It's still part of the equitable share. When you find that Murang'a hasn't received disbursement for the month of October and September, then which money am I drawing from?
Then the Deputy President must be right if at all this allocation, even the 10 billion is part of the equitable share,
yes,
that you expect the disbursement to come as part of the equitable share. Therefore, the Deputy President could be right to some extent. There have been disbursements since the beginning of this financial year. Does it mean that part of that 10 billion could have already been disbursed as part of the equitable share?
But as the Chair Council of Governors has said, there are counties that has not received since September, and there are others that has not received since October, and others November, and others has not even received the 3 months, and therefore I think it is good to really get information from Treasury even before His Excellency the President, the Deputy President, make such utterances, because it goes against that spirit of collaboration and cooperation under Article 6.2 of the Constitution. And I think one of my biggest issues is to say we are lacking that coordination. And we should have a very robust, well-coordinated framework between the national government, the county government, and other agencies that really tackle this issue.
Yet the Deputy President chairs the Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council, IBEC.
Yes.
We are seeing now the Deputy President on this issue disagreeing with the Council of Governors. Where is the disconnect? Because the ability to hold a meeting, the ability to have a concerted effort to sit around a table is possible. There are no disagreements between the county governments and the national government. Why is it that they were unable to do the same in as far as this El-Nino disaster response is concerned? On other issues, they always have a meeting.
Yeah, and that is why I say I don't see the reason, because governors are reachable. Governors are ready to work with the national government. And this issue is quite serious. We don't need to make it an issue of blame game, because right now we have already lost 50 lives in Kenya. Actually,
close to 70 now, according to the Kenya Red Cross.
We have 80,000 or more displaced and a lot of property destroyed. And therefore, it is an issue of leaders coming together. Let's say, what is the ministry in the national government doing? For example, the Ministry of Roads. A lot of roads, tarmac road, are cut off. What is the national government doing to ensure that there is accessibility? What is the county government doing on its roads? Let's take a collaborative approach. And therefore, I just need to ask our Deputy President, His Excellency the Governors, to sit down and have a collaborative approach towards this.
We're now seeing these two institutions, the Office of the Deputy President and the Council of Governors, having exchanges in media. That is an indication of a failure somewhere in as far as coordination is concerned. We are right in the middle of the crisis, a crisis that the weatherman already talked about months in advance. It would appear that government, and I'm talking about both levels of government, prefer reacting to a crisis as opposed to preparing. There was enough time to coordinate. There was enough time to hold meetings. There was enough time to do allocations and fight over money before the disaster struck.
Yes. I tend to think what we are having right now, we need to recognize that we do not have perfect systems. because at the end of the day, governments are formed by people. And systems sometimes have a little bit of, they are moving parts. Some gears, sometimes they do not have enough grease. But I want to say that this response that you are seeing between the national government and the county governments is not just as specific to El-Nino. But these are the challenges that we have each and every other day when we are trying to work between the national government and the county government. Because you remember that this is not the first time that disbursements are usually late to the counties. Since last year, we have the national government had struggled, but it was able to do that very well when the president intervened. In this financial year, what we require is a sustained. If we can get this disbursement in time, the 5% that you have budgeted for, we can start using that as a county without having an exchange with the national government. And this is where I tend to think that the coordination factor is not only it's not only about the finances, but rather we also should be able to coordinate on issues of development that are clearly about responding to disasters and creating resilience. Okay. Because remember, when you have development structures or other development that are geared towards this, how do you respond to this? And I'm going to look at a good example. We have counties that are fully flooded. Do they have evacuation plans? Do they have relief plans? Do they have mitigation plans? What is ratified by the national government? Or what do the National Disaster Operations Center indicate of this? What does it do and what is supposed to happen?
Does Murang'a have such?
Murang'a, we have the emergency policy regulations that we passed the other day. And when you come towards development, it's supposed to be a long and arduous process. Because remember that responding to a disaster is not a matter of waking up, there is flood somewhere and you go respond to that. When you are creating your normal development to look at sewerage, to look at drainage, to look at planning of your towns, you should be able to estimate that yes, my town and our city is in a low-lying road. What are the risks? So when we are making these development plans, where should we direct our water to? Where should we direct the flood waters to? So that you can be able to consciously develop when you are also planning for disasters. And I want to go back to this issue of communication. The communication between the national government and the county government should be very clear. And at this point, the Council of Governors, and we were there with His Excellency Chair Anne Waiguru, and she indicated that she hadn't received any instructions or even monies to the counties on terms of disaster response. But we also have to put that into context. If we haven't received those funds, what are the funds that are we talking about? When it comes to equity, and she said very clearly in the same statement that some counties have not received equitable share. Why? Because the equitable shares is tied together with the budgeted emergency funds. Okay. So when the deputy president says that that they have dispensed the funds, then it should be clear what kind of funds that they have dispensed. Because also remember that he has also been very vocal to provide relief where needed, and you saw it over the weekend. He took relief foods to some of the affected areas. But you also see that also monies that have been dispensed and are already moving. Mm-hmm. So what needs to be clear is what money and for what response that have dispensed. When it talks about dispersing of resources, you saw that Air Force chopper that downed in a county over the weekend when when doing the response. Those are resources from the national government. But you find that His Excellency Bwana Moshisho here does not have a clear plan to understand what resources from the national government we can be able to access and from where. And those are the structures and kind of communication that requires to be open. And that's not the part of the Deputy President alone.
And back to my question, because there was enough time to have this and fix the communication, fix the plan, because the weatherman spoke as early as January this year, that this year we do expect that the El-Nino phenomenon, which is a cyclic phenomenon, after a certain number of years, it will happen again and again. And I'm looking at the Kajiado County Government website, and there are plans as early as 2015 on how to deal with El-Nino, and we'll come back to that. But Bwana Mburu, when it comes to planning, how much time do you need to plan for emergency response when already you're told everything is set? My question was, it would appear there's a preference for reaction as opposed to proactive preparedness. Yes.
I tend to think is that the kind of government that we do have, this is both the county and the national government, structures sometimes tend to be a little bit rigid. And not swift of response when there is not those functions. What I wanted to indicate is that whether we are doing the rapid response, because I think what you're talking about is rapid response.
No, I'm talking about the fact that you prefer the rapid response after the crisis has happened, as opposed to preparing in advance
rapid
for any
response
eventuality.
is the most visible part of disaster management. The rapid
and
response
it has better political
it's the
value.
most visible. It's the most visible when it comes to because when you have a fire and you need a fire engine or a rescue unit to get to somewhere, when you have a mudslide and you need a rescue unit to get to somewhere, that's the most visible response and to the public and to anybody. But any other plans, for example, and I'm going to say that it's not reactionary. You know why I'm saying it's not reactionary? Because when we heard that all about this all the way from January, that's when, for example, in Murang'a County, we started developing the emergency funds bill all the way from January, and we are able to pass it and budget for it within the last within this budget in this financial year cycle. So it's not reactionary because currently we have the emergency bill and regulations passed by the county assembly. We have allocated funds. The budget has passed. We did a supplementary budget to add those funds. We had conversation, for example, in the county with both the county assembly and the county assembly members to understand what kind of a response they require in their own areas. We had a workshop, in fact, last week with my members of county assembly. So for us, it's not reactionary. But what the information that is not getting to most people is that the most visible part and where they are grinding gears is when maybe we have a small disagreement on this issue and that issue. And by the way, if, for example, today, all counties received their up-to-date disbursement, every county that has passed an emergency fund regulations can be able to draw the money from it. Okay. So it's a matter of access and putting the money available for that. Okay. So the question is, what is Treasury able to do as of now?
Okay. Questions that Treasury should answer. Now, as far as proactive preparedness, and I mentioned what I'm seeing in the county government of Kajiado's website, and this is as far back as 2015. They talked of preparing in order to create awareness, sensitization, and enhance preparedness. They talk about flash flood hotspots they've already mapped out. Kajiado community advised to do the following. Veterinary department, what they need to do, livestock production, agriculture, traffic, and health. The plan is there.
Yes.
How much of this has been put to effect? Because I'm seeing issues to do with the unclogging of drainage systems as well. Now, this is a kind of preparedness we're talking about.
Yes.
Are these measures in place? These are proposals made 8 years back. Do we have this kind of infrastructure and measures in place such that in the next 2 months, if the situation gets tough, this will already be in place?
Fred, I want to confirm that the structures are being followed, and ours is a proactive approach and not just a reactive approach. And we keep going back to this, like when we heard that there is a possibility of an El-Nino. We reviewed these structures again, see how prepared we are. And indeed, we prepared for it. And
one of the examples here is a relocation, a warning and relocation of people and assets from flood-prone areas, e.g. plains, riverbanks, and drainage channels. Something like that.
That is exactly what we have done. We have sensitized our people, especially those that are in areas that are prone to flooding, areas of Pakase, areas of Lormongi, areas of Matapato, Bisil. We informed them in good time. We asked our county structures from sub-county administrators, ward administrators, to village administrators that tell our people that there are possibilities of flooding, and therefore those who live in areas that are prone to flooding should move. But again, that is why I told you every department has been prepared well in advance. The Department of Agriculture has organized vaccination. And right now we have just finished a vaccination of all our animals, both cows and shorts, just to prepare for this. So every department has prepared, and I think in Kajiado we have a well structured way of addressing these issues. We work well, by the way, with the national government and the county government. We have a response team that is chaired by both the governor and the county commissioner. And that team meets regularly, see where there are weaknesses, where there are weak links, and be able to strengthen. And that has really helped Kajiado in addressing these matters. And we also work with other agencies like, Red Cross and NDMA, which is a department in the national government. That has really helped. And I think I agree that county government should prepare well in advance. If you get information that something is happening, prepare your teams well. And for the cases of Kajiado, I think we have done it very, very well. Okay. Yeah.
There's always the issue of transition when one county government gives way to another. And for example, this plan was prepared in 2015. It was a different administration back then. Are county governments able to carry on? Because we've seen that challenge as well, that anytime one administration exits, every plan they had is put on the back burner and the new administration has come up with a fresh plan. Do you think counties are able to carry on and ensure that their governments exist in perpetuity?
Definitely. Because we need also to understand that when a new administration comes on, there are measures to ensure that the new administration is up to date. But you also see that it's not an entirety, the entire government doesn't change. The entire government doesn't change, because the people, for example, the leadership areas are the ones that have a way of changing. And for example, you see for the parts of the counties, it's the governor, the deputy governor, the CCs, and the chief officers. But you also see that towards that response, you find that all the custodians of those structures are still in place. You find that you have every department, from the director's level all the way to the last person within the county, they are still the same people. The custodians of the records, the custodians of the policies, even the policies themselves. Plus, when new government comes in place, there is what we call a transitional committee that communicates each and every departmental departmental policy, each and every departmental plan, the budgetary allocations made towards them and the rationales that were made about them. They are passed to the new administration. What really changes in new administration is the direction of development. That changes. But you also find that, for example, when you look at devolved functions, in counties, and this is especially for Murang'a, when we came into the new administration, we found that our healthcare system was a little bit of had a little bit of more wants, because we had promised the people that we are going to take care of their healthcare system. So what did we intend to do about that? Because currently what we are dealing with are issues of disaster response. You have health risks that come into place. So what are we prepared to do as a county? So we made a conscious decision to ensure that not only Murang'a has one level 5 hospital, we need to build a second one so that it can take care of the influx of people there. And already construction has begun on areas of Makeji. We found that we do not have enough dispensaries in certain areas. By last financial year, we were able to construct at least 13 of them, new ones, and we have been able to facilitate them accordingly. We found that our sub-county hospitals do not have sufficient structures to enable them to do that. We have made efforts to upgrade each and every one of them, that every sub-county hospital right now in Murang'a has a project ongoing. You go to Murang'a level 5, we are adding 4 more wards. You go to Maragua, we are adding 2 more wards. You go to Kandara, we are constructing a theater and 4 wards. You go to Nyakianga in Madhioya, we are doing similarly the same. We just completed the Kerwara sub-county hospital, which is in Katanga constituency. All these responses, they are towards understanding that the health risk that our people are in. Because when we are looking at issues of trying to get medicine to people, I cannot put medicine to people in one facility. I need to put medicine to, and this is true to everywhere else across the country.
Yet the Deputy President says that all such development should be frozen for now, and that was his suggestion, and these resources be redirected towards mitigating the effects of the El-Nino, direct mitigation like provision of relief supplies to families and victims that have been affected. Do you agree with that, or do you think it's an unfair demand on the county governments?
I think it's not an unfair demand, but it needs to be it needs to happen in a structured manner. The reason why I'm saying that is because the PFM Act is very clear. And the reason why it's very clear is because if you put in a caveat that you can redirect development funds towards such activities, you might open up loopholes for pilferage of public funds. And because, mind you, for example, we have budgeted, for example, in our development budget, we have close to 3 billion shillings. If we say that we can redirect that, then you find that areas where there are no robust structures, then people tend to take advantage of them, that you can take any money from any department and put it towards any other function. So it needs to be structured. That means there need to be clear regulation on how that can happen and what kind of funds can be drawn. But as it is of now, that's not possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Moshisho, when it comes to development, it is very political, and every governor is keen to ensure that development, things that can be seen by the members of the public, is what he prioritizes. Do you feel that this demand by the national government, or the Deputy President for that matter, is unfair for county governments, that put a freeze on all development and focus all your resources towards relief supplies?
I think we need to take advantage of the supplementary budgeting that is ongoing and be able to reallocate funds and prioritize areas, especially mitigation of these El-Nino effects. Because, as he says, you can only redirect funds in a manner that is allowed by the law. Other than that, it's not possible. But let me say it is really important to have lives of people preserved than just think about development. I think we have prioritized saving lives during the Corona time, and we saw a coordinated approach, and counties were able to, give it all, and the national government. We also really tried during the last drought that we experienced, especially in ASAL counties. There was a very well coordinated approach, and we redirected funds, and we were able to ensure that we have not lost lives. I think in this case we still can be able to redirect funds, but in accordance with the law. Therefore, I really advise counties to take advantage of the physical cycle. Right now, supplementary budgeting is ongoing. Let's ensure that we have sufficient funds allocated for mitigation of these El-Nino effects.
Back to the issue of transition between one administration and another, because we've seen the challenges, especially when it comes to pending bills. And some of these measures, in as far as preparing for disaster response, could need tendering and contractual deals. Would you say that these governments are ready and willing and they are able to perform these things and sustain such contractual agreements in perpetuity? It is not very accurate, because we know that some contractors who are working under the previous administrations, and I'm not talking about your particular counties, it's a general problem. Whenever there is a change in administration, that contract ends. If at all it was in clogging and clogging of drainages, that contract ends, and the new government is keen to have its own processes. Do you think that is part of the problem?
Fred, I think we need to appreciate the perpetuity of government. Government is perpetual. When you take over credits and liabilities of any government, and therefore there should not be blame games.
But that is an ideal situation. Is it happening that way?
And one thing is, when you work with government, be rest assured that your money is safe, because at one point you will be paid. All the pending bills are put together and reported at IBEC, and there is a collaborative approach both from the national government and county government to ensure that every pending bill is going to be paid by counties. And we have committed that part of the things that will work to ensure that it happens is clearing all the pending bills. So I want to assure all the contractors and people who work with government that they will finally be paid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you offer the same assurance?
Of course, but I want to also put to you in a little bit of more context. Every tender has a contractual period. Some contractual periods are less than a year. Some are more than a year. When contractual periods moves towards a new financial year, is still allocated amount to for it to be paid. For Murang'a County, and especially for us, we took the perspective that we need to bridge the gap between our actualized budget and the budget deficit that we can be able to, so we can close that budget deficit. Because you find that sometimes the budget deficit is the one that is responsible for creating pending bills. And when we came into the new administration, sometimes you have what we call historical pending bills. And historical pending bills, you find that you cannot clearly pay them as a county, because you risk you risk paying unsubstantiated monies. And this speaks to the structures of how we procure things as counties and as well as national government. If the procedures are not in place and they are not followed, then a new administration is very cautious towards understanding what can be clearly be paid within the law and what cannot. And so you found out that last year, when most of county governments came into force, including Murang'a County, we created what we call a pending bill evaluation committees that we gazetted. They sat down. They said to all the contractors who had some form of pending bills, because when you get into a government and you find that you have close to 3 billion shillings in pending bills, that means that your entire development budget is supposed to be used up in such activities. So you find that that you need to do such activities so that you can do what? You can verify who did what work, when, and how, so that you can clearly pay who did the work, the one who did it on time and delivered according to the contractual agreement that they signed with the county. All those pending bills as of last financial year for Murang'a County, every part of the pending bills that was within the development budget, we paid it out. The pending bills that were on paid services and other services delivered to the county government of Murang'a, which includes the recurrent budget. We have plans together with the county assembly to ensure that by the end of this financial year, that all those pending bills have been paid. But that is not to say that the pending bills that existed way before we came into government are not going to be paid, and especially those past 3 years. Because you have an auditor general's office that makes audits of county government and classifies these pending bills to be paid or not. And so as a new administration, you are only required to pay pending bills that are within a certain parameter of time. And for example, for Murang'a, it was only pending bills incurred between the financial year 2020, 2021. Anything that was past 2019, the Auditor General's office told us that that is out of scope for you to pay. Why? Because there was already a determination in 2019 for the purpose of those pending bills. If they were not cleared by then any other person who says that they have a bill that was supposed to be paid by then they should take it up with the Auditor General's office, or even go to court to see whether they can be able to get their dues. But as of Murang'a County, to address the issue of pending bills, we have clearly indicated that we need to reduce the budget deficit. And for us, our budget deficit was 400 million. And as of when we were doing a supplementary budget, we ensured that we have ensured that we have a revenue that grows in the county without the addition of taxes. And our projection as of this year, as at now, we are headed towards hitting the target of ensuring that we reach our targeted revenue within as we had budgeted for it, which means that the deficit that we did have for 400 million is going to be breached. That means we can be able to pay all our contractors within this financial year if they can complete their work in time.
Okay. And Fred, just to add on what he has said, I think there is a very clear way to ensure that the pending bills are at a level that is called eligible pending bills. Because it is true, there is a possibility of cooking pending bills, just ghost projects that are not done, and therefore there should be a process to ensure that this is a true pending bill that is an eligible pending bill, and that is what government is going to pay. But we have a responsibility as county government to ensure that we really minimize the issue of pending bills, because it really hurts the economy, it hurts our business people, our contractors. And I think how these pending bills comes to be is sometimes projecting way above what you can be able to collect, especially for our own source revenue. And therefore, counties should try as much as possible to collect from their own source revenue, but also be truthful to the projections. Okay. Because the more you project too high and you fail to attain to those projections, it will definitely result to a pending bill. And it will really, really cost the business people, the contractors, their money, their time in recovering their resources.
Okay.
Yep.
And as we come to the end of this conversation, I would want to get your opinion on this issue, another issue that is counties are also grappling with. And this is away from the El-Nino phenomenon, but on governance issues. And it is a apparent concentration of county government jobs within a select few communities across all the 47 counties. And this was revealed by the Ethnic and Diversity Audit of the County Public Service, and it shows a troubling situation where 80% of employment is monopolized by only 10 communities. And this, only 13 counties have been able to adhere to the requirement on employment policies, the national employment policies. It takes me back to an issue of there was, when devolution started, there was to be certain positions or a certain number of positions within county government jobs that were to be reserved for communities outside that county. And I don't know how much or how far counties have gone in as far as this is concerned.
Let me first begin by indicating that everything needs to be given a context for it to be able to be understood. On the onset of devolution, the counties were created in an area where they inherited staff. And for example, in Murang'a, we inherited staff from Murang'a County Council. We inherited staff from the previous national governments, the departments that were within Murang'a, and all those employments, for example, that happened before 2013. To date, we still have those staff within us. But also in context, where do counties lie? One of the most diverse counties in terms of population, maybe it's our metropolitan county, which is Nairobi, which draws population across the country. But you go to a county like Murang'a, you find that we have a population of 1.1 million people, and almost 97% are all from one ethnic community. So when you are talking about diversity in employment, in employment, then it should be indicative of the population and the context that you are that you are in. Because at the same time, what does diversity of employment mean to the people of Murang'a? Mm-hmm. The people of Murang'a means that diversity to them is not necessarily about which community one comes from, because every person within the community, most of them comes from the same from the same community. But that's not to mean that we are not working towards ensuring that we have diversity. For example, in our top leadership, we have chief officers from almost a third of our chief officers do not come from. Almost a third, yeah. Yes. Do not come from the Kikuyu community that is very dominant. We continue fixing these policies by having the Public Service Board being as independent enough to implement these policies as indicative. But this cannot be done in a single day. Remember that, for example, in a county like Murang'a, we are way above regulation in terms of employment salaries vis-a-vis the budget, because the PFMA Act indicates that we need to be at least 35%, but in Murang'a we are at 45%. This is not to mean that we can we can move to employment, we need to reduce the number of employees that we do have or increase our own source revenue. That means this is not indicative that if we need to fix this, we need to fire people to bring new ones. What there needs to happen is that we need to have a policy implementation framework where maybe we can have an exchange program where if for example we can have a very bright mind in Kajiado County.
Okay.
And we need to exchange that, like what we do, we need that stuff. We can do that exchange. And that can solve some of the issues that we do have.
And that's a brilliant idea, but we're not seeing that happening as yet. And the question is, 10 years since the advent of devolution, aren't we reducing our counties or devolved units into ethnic enclaves, basically? That if it's Murang'a, it's purely Kikuyu. If it's Kajiado, it's purely Maasai.
Let me start by saying that our case is different in Kajiado. Kajiado, well, being a Maasai county, but again is one of the most cosmopolitan counties in Kenya. All communities of Kenya are in Kajiado. And exactly in employment opportunities, it reflects the Kenya that is in Kajiado. For example, in our cabinet, we have Maasais in our cabinet, we have Kikuyu, we have Jaluo, the Luo community, we have, even in our senior officers, literally almost all communities reflected, including other lower cadres of employment opportunities in our county. It is true, if we are not careful as county governments, we will find counties just being cocoons of certain communities. But I think there should be diversity. Let's have exchange, opportunities, as my brother has said. Let's have some Maasais working in Murang'a, and we have some Kikuyus from Murang'a working in Kajiado. Yeah. And we have seen some governors practicing that. We have some of our county actually working in the Ukambani counties, and we do some exchange opportunities with our neighboring counties. So it is really, really possible, and I think it gives, a new face to counties. It gives a new perspective, new ideas, and I think we make our counties more diverse, and we enjoy that diversity. Mm-hmm. I think it is important to start that.
What is the disconnect, therefore, that we are seeing? Because this is a report by the NCIC. Mm-hmm. It's not just coming from anywhere. It's something that's happening. Yeah. That counties are very first degenerated into tribal or ethnic organizations, especially the county governments.
Let me, first of all, take you a little bit back. Contextualizing the issue of employment is also a very political process. And government do not work in a vacuum of politics. And regardless how we look at things, the politics are a dominant factor of our reality in governance in this country. Whether you want to look at it in form of who is elected and the direction they are going to take, it's a very highly political process. And how do Kenyans contextualize employment and the county government or national government for that matter? It's indicative, for example, the people of Murang'a voted for a Murang'a governor who comes from their own community. If the governor is creating employment opportunities for within Murang'a, then contextualize that within the politics because remember that our governance structure is a highly political one. So at the end of the day, Murang'a people are going to expect the Murang'a governor to employ Murang'a people to provide for their services. That is one context. The other context is the laws and regulations that we have indicated that we needed a devolved function so that they can be able to serve the communities. Remember that most of the services we provide to our people are done in local languages, because our people, that's how you, and I'm going to give you an example. We have an agricultural, a huge agricultural sector in Murang'a County. Our extension workers work with farmers who cannot talk English or Kiswahili in clear context so that they can be able to do things. So they require people within their community who understands this and can be able to communicate the agricultural extension policies to them. And I'm going to give you an example. When we came into office in Murang'a County and we created a minimum guaranteed returns policy for the people of Murang'a to provide with them to them subsidies, we engaged close to 40,000 farmers within Murang'a. This, the one that we are supporting in mango, the one that we are supporting in milk, and the one we are supporting in sorghum, the one we are supporting in rose grass, the one we are supporting in avocado. When you put that into context, you need to educate these people. That means even my employment policy, when it gets to implementing that, I need people who can be able to clearly communicate these agendas to the people.
In the local language. In
the local languages. Okay. And when, for example, you go to Murang'a, you have, especially the rural areas of the lower Murang'a, we have areas where they are Kamba dominant. We have to put into context that they need local dialect, people who can speak the local dialect to them. So if I put, for example, a person from Kajiado County who is a Maasai into that context, contextualizing that and communicating that would be a problem Our health dispensaries that are in the village level, they serve the elderly population that cannot speak Kiswahili. So in that context, am I supposed to put a person there who does not speak the language?
Okay,
how can they communicate? So everything in context.
Okay.
So even as we are doing all this, we can still continue to do that, but it cannot be a one-day affair. It cannot be a 5 years. Okay. It needs to be over time.
Well put. Yes. I hold that thought because we're taking a break, but when we come back, I'll give you an opportunity to give your final remarks as we come to the end of this conversation. You're watching Morning Cafe. Don't go too far. Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe. We now want to wrap up these conversations with the Deputy Governors of Murang'a County and Kajiado County. And I'll give you gentlemen an opportunity to give your final remarks, starting with you, Bwana Moshisho.
Thank you very much, and we want to appreciate the discussion we had this morning about the preparedness and how we are prepared to deal with the effects of El-Nino. And my advice to the counties and the nation is His Excellency the Deputy President to ensure that the committee that has been set, the National Response Committee, to be active and convene all levels of government to be able to address the effects of El-Nino, so that we can be able to ensure that the lives of Kenyans are secure and avert any loss of property or the displacement of people. I suggest that we continue working in collaboration and in cooperation in the spirit that is enshrined in the Constitution, because we say we have 47 county government but one nation. We need to put our nation together. We need to work in unison to be able to have a very, very stable country. To the people of Kajiado, we continue to work for you, and we continue to ensure that every part of Kajiado is safe and the lives of people of Kajiado are secure. Thank you very much for having me this morning. I have enjoyed the session, and the national government, let's have trusts with one another. Okay. You know, before the start of this El-Nino, we received letters from EACC that governors be very careful with how you use these funds. The county governments are not in the spirit of mishandling Kenyans' money. Okay. We are very prudent in the use of public money, and the nation should have full confidence with the county governments.
Asante sana. Bwana Mburu?
Yes, thank you very much. And as we conclude, I want to indicate, as we are looking at the El-Nino response. Yesterday, my governor, His Excellency Dr. Irungo Kangata, made the State of the County address to the County Assembly. And we were looking at where we are at 1 year after elections, and we are looking at our achievements and the way forward. And the governor was very keen in underscoring that part of our achievement and part of our plans that we had indicated that we are going to do to the people of Murang'a are on course, and this is going to provide the services that the people of Murang'a are going to enjoy. And as we had indicated in trying to fix our budget deficit, in a similar period between July and December last year, Murang'a County had only collected 175 million shillings. This year, the similar period between July and December, we are on course to collect at least 300 million. This is a double projection, and these are revenue collection as at now. That means we will be fixing our own source revenue and getting to the target so that we do not have a budget deficit. We also are very proud of the fact that all the development projects that we began in the last financial year, we did not come into the new year with any form of pending bills from those projects that we began. And remember that we did, for example, within the development side, we did at least 139 new ECD centers within Murang'a County. Some we renovated, some we constructed anew. We also were able to do construction of what we were calling Smart Cities program. This is tarmacking flooding of our towns, the market centers. We did 7 of them in the last financial year, and we paid each and every contractor of all their obligations. We also began the project of Kangata Care, which was the provision of health care insurance to the Murang'a residents. We had projected that every year we are going to get to a target of 20,000 households, and last year we were able to provide 20,000 households. This year, in the month of September, we were able to refresh that, and we provided for a further 18,000, and so we have a total of 38,000 households that we are supporting in terms of Kangata Care. And this provides the response that the people of Murang'a requires, a government that is responsible. And you find that everything that we promised the people of Murang'a and what we are projecting to do, we are on course of everything that we are indicative. This is even in the midst of El-Nino rains. We still have plans to continue supporting our farmers. Okay. And for this, I want to commend one of the most hardworking departments in Murang'a County, which is agriculture, having supported 39,000 farmers in terms of minimum guaranteed returns. And we were also able to transfer the milk factory to the farmers themselves through cooperatives. Now they have a factory that they can process their milk for value addition. And as we do all this, and as we are talking about the national government and the county government, for me, I have seen a national government that is very responsive to the needs of the people of Murang'a. And I want to commend His Excellency the President and the Deputy President for working hand in hand with the people of Murang'a County to ensure that we get to that place. And one example is that yesterday, we made one of the inaugural agreement signing at the Council of Governors for the development of the County Aggregation and Industrial Park. This is going to invest 500 million into an industrial park in Murang'a County. Similarly, we have also benefited with the development of an EPZ, new EPZ in Murang'a. We have provided for 500 acres for that EPZ. And His Excellency, the Governor, in his wisdom, appointed me the chair of the implementation of EPZ. We are on course to providing to the people employment opportunity, adding value to their product, and ensuring that they are able to self-determine within the county. And so, as we move forward, responding to the challenges that we are facing of El-Nino disaster, I urge that we have a development mind frame that also understands that the season we are in of global warming, the season that we are in about environmental degradation, the issues that we are facing about the heavy rainfall and El-Nino, so that in future, when we are creating roads, when we are creating facilities such as hospitals, when we are planning our cities, when we are planning our towns, when we are planning for every other development aspect of education, of agriculture, that the development is mindful and conscious of continuously updating our programs, so that when a disaster arises, we are not just responding to that risk as it happens at that particular time, but we have measures that can withstand. We have programs that we can be able to put and respond to such issues. We have money set aside, or structure that we have set aside. And this is part of the growing pains of a developing economy.
Okay. Thank you so much, Bwana Stephen Mboro, Deputy Governor, Murang'a County, and Martin Moshisho, Deputy Governor, Kajiado Counties. Our panelists this morning helping us discuss county's El-Nino response. Thank you so much, gentlemen. I know you're busy people, and for having time to come to TV47.
Thank you.
Allow me 1 minute to go through this editorial comment as we come to the end of this session. Now, our attention definitely has been drawn to the government's haphazard or disjointed response to the floods that continue to wreak havoc across the country. With close to 70 lives already lost and thousands of people displaced from their homes, Kenyans would have expected a more organized emergency response. Instead, what you're being treated to are unfortunate exchanges between Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and the Council of Governors on who is to blame for failing to prepare for disaster. While the Deputy President claimed that governors already had access to a 10 billion shilling fund for this purpose, the governors vehemently deny the existence of such allocations. The COG goes further to claim that county governments are owed in excess of 62 billion shillings in allocations from the equitable share. This back and forth reeks inefficiency and signals miscommunication between the two levels of government. Yet, the Meteorological Department had forecast the current rainfall months in advance, a prediction which was at one point undermined by very senior officials in government. This confusion eroded public trust in the government's ability to provide accurate information and guidance during this critical time. We do not enjoy the luxury of time for the government, whether county or national, to continue dragging its feet on this matter. The weatherman has issued further updates of the ongoing severe weather, indicating the above-average rainfall will persist well into January next year. Kenyans are in dire need of concrete support